Hey everyone, this is Stephanie O'Brien, founder of Coach Client Connection. Today I'm here with Chris Nielson, the creator of the Speaker Skills Plus, which is a speaking gym where speakers not just learn how to speak, but actually implement and practice the skills. So instead of just learning how to do it and then being sent off into the wild to sink or swim, you're actually practicing these skills and getting really good at them so you can make the most out of them and use them to grow your business and your influence. So thank you very much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
You're very welcome. So, what were some of the challenges you experienced in your life that inspired you to solve these challenges by creating this gym?
Well, I was working in my own speaking skills. I'm a professional speaker and I constantly want to get better at my craft. And I tell this story a lot. Bowls of cereal and remote controls would end up in my hand whenever I'd go to work on my speaking skills. I'd find ways to procrastinate. And I thought one day it came to me, I was going, where don't I procrastinate? And at the time it was in basketball and in improv comedy. And so I said, what do they have in common? Well, I love to go do it. So how do I make growing my communication, speaking, storytelling skills as fun as those two things? And that's when I came up with the idea of Speaker Skills Plus, having gamified trainings online on Zoom, so anyone from anywhere around the world could join me and play.
That sounds like a really clever way to do it. Yeah, I was recently talking with another person who gamifies things. And I think, yeah, more and more, especially with people shortening attention spans and with just how sick people are of forcing themselves to do things that aren't fun, that don't bring them joy. The more we can make the things that grow our business fun, the better. So,
Absolutely.
So what about for people who want to speak but don't necessarily have fun with it, like people with stage fright, with anxiety, with imposter syndrome, people who feel like they're not good enough to be on stage? Do you find that this process is really helpful for them?
Absolutely. It's kind of, I love the gym analogy. If you go into the gym, you're not going to be able to lift 300 pounds all at once, but you can lift whatever you can lift. And the more you lift it, the stronger you feel yourself getting. You get good feedback in the room as well. So you go, oh my gosh, I'm sharing that really well. That story, people loved it. You feel that confidence grows, and then you can deliver it more in the real world. And so for me, when you're confident as a speaker, so most speakers have to sell themselves if they're looking to get booked. And if you're not confident in the product or service you're selling, it's hard to sell it. Like I
Yeah, if
said,
you don't trust it, they won't trust it.
absolutely. And people will hear that in your voice. I've been a horrible salesperson and I've been a very good salesperson. And I was very good when I really believed I had the best thing for my clients at that time.
Yeah, it's that whole instead of selling, you're helping them buy it. It's so much easier to help them buy when you believe that buying will help them.
Absolutely. When like my speaking that I do, building culture, team building, and leadership for organizations and companies, I know I can add thousands to millions to priceless in value to companies. When I
Wow.
know that, and when I speak on that, they can feel my confidence in there, and I have the confidence in me to share that because I've done it numerous times.
Yeah, it is really helpful for the mindset. And what happens if somebody comes to you and they don't have that confidence? They're not completely sure about the value of what they're offering. What do you do to help them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the plus part of Speaker Skills Plus, part of that is dropping our fears, the stuff that get in our way. And we are one of the big programs that causes imposter syndrome or contributes to it is this I'm not good enough programming that's out there everywhere. TV commercials that are telling you you're not good enough. All these social media is telling you not good enough, but we're telling you you're good enough as you are and lean into your strengths. And when we help people find their strengths as communicators, become master storytellers by mastering the factors of storytelling, they can deliver an incredible message.
So, do you have any tips that our listeners could use right now if they're feeling that imposter syndrome, feeling not good enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And one, surround yourself with people that will support you. Find people that will support you, give you honest feedback. The other one big thing is love yourself. Find a way to build up your self-compassion because I believe if you do that, then you can see more accurately. And I use this example a lot. I'm a basketball player, not as much these days, more pickleball these days, but in basketball, I'm a very good shooter. And when I shoot and miss, I'm watching exactly where I'm missing, short, long, to the side. So if I get the ball back right away, I can adjust. I watch some of my friends, high level in their business, and they shoot and they do this. They put their head down and they can't even see where they've missed because they're a little bit ashamed. If we drop our shame, if we drop our fear, we can be more present as speakers and bring out the best in what we do. And for me, I went from a fearful speaker myself to one that has a ton of fun, and that's by being present. So if you let go of these things that pull you away from the presence in the room and be present, magic can happen as a speaker.
And so basically, instead of drawing into your shell and trying to ignore the feelings of discomfort or dissociate, you just pay attention to what's going wrong and adjust accordingly.
Absolutely. And you'll see so many good examples of, and I say, don't compare yourself to others, be inspired by others. So we start changing that program too. What could you grab that they're using? Or, oh, that's a great metaphor I can use for my business. What could I do that they're sharing and add it to what I do? And you start getting feedback. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, that was brilliant. We love that story. And now you got a really good story for your story bank.
So, how do you help people to differentiate between, picking out the parts of other people's processes and speeches that are good for them versus not becoming a mimicry of somebody else at the expense of their own style and personality?
So there's a lot of games we play. One of my favorites is just sensory experience. And if you've been on a walk in nature or you've ate some amazing food or cooked some amazing food, those are easy ways to go. So you describe your senses and it actually takes you back almost to reliving those moments. And that's one of the ways to jump up your communication skills pretty rapidly. If you practice reliving moments, sharing the sensory experience, you'll bring your audience into that new world. And we have another game, called, create the scene. So you create a scene, an environment really quick so people can feel themselves stepping into this library that's just plush, books 20 feet in the air, and a smiling librarian walking towards them going, shh.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Really quickly, my mind just went to Beauty and the Beast.
Nice. Yeah, the
Yeah.
beautiful library in that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear more about, what other games do you play in these? What are some of the really common challenges that people come to you with, and how do you solve those challenges?
Well, let me go back to one that I might not have fully answered. How do they craft a speech that doesn't make it their own? One of
Yeah.
the games we play is called New Choice, and I'll play kind of both sides of it. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs, and the other person online raises their hand because sometimes our voice is cut off and says New Choice. And at that moment, they come up with a new choice in that. So there were five little pigs. New choice. There were 13 little pigs that were excited to leave home. New choice. They were resistant to leave home, but mom and dad threw them out the door. And up on top of the hill was a great big wolf. New choice. A tiny, scrawny wolf. And so that's an idea. You do not have to come up with your speech on your own. And oftentimes someone what's another new choice you could make in that moment? Or go, oh my gosh, if you just share that story in that moment, it really makes that point. Or here's a metaphor or analogy that you can do to make whatever you see a little more concrete to build on that.
So basically, you take the parts that are applicable, but any parts that don't feel applicable or don't feel like you just go new choice. Here's what else I'm going to say instead.
Yeah, and just get the mindset. Some of these comedy shows have 17, 20 writers. You do not have to go from scratch and create your own material as people help you bring out your story. You might be telling a story when you were a little kid and someone stopped you from getting what you wanted and you were crying about it, but your grandfather walked up to you, grabbed you by the hand and said, you know what? I know you can do it. And that voice, that warm voice made all the difference in the world. And that might be a story you use in a particular situation, whether you're coaching or with your business or sharing stories in your personal life.
Yeah, and there are a few, stories that I use from some of my mentors that, I share with credit. So and so told me this, so and so used that analogy.
And that's a great point, Stephanie. You do not have to use all your own stories. You can start to master some great stories of human beings that have accomplished so much in this world that share a lesson that you want to deliver in that moment.
Yeah, like for some example, sometimes I'm pretty sure it was Justin Livingston was telling me about, how people needs to focus on the symptoms their clients are aware of. Like if somebody had offered him a cure for celiac disease, he'd have said no because he didn't know he had it. If someone had offered him a cure for debilitating stomach aches after eating bread, oh yes, gimme. I
Yeah,
think it was Justin Livingston.
Now, that's a great example too. Sometimes just the simple labeling it different makes all the difference.
Yeah, sometimes people don't know about their, root causes of their problems, but they sure as heck know about the symptoms.
And you bring up an example that I talk about a lot. So I talk about first level, second level, third level words. Third level words are words you need to look up. You haven't heard before. You're not sure. You need to see them in context. Go, what does that word mean? Second level, you kind of know what they mean in a context. First level, you feel instantly how the word makes you feel and your audience. So if you're speaking in your own language, like a doctor said, well, you have celiac disease. If you have no idea what that means, go, oh, well, your stomach hurts constantly right after eating bread. I do know what that means. Now you're communicating really at that first level for someone and they really understand it better.
Yeah, as a novelist, I sometimes have to pay attention to that. Like, okay, I could use this word, but are people going to have to stall their momentum of reading to look it up in order to actually get the impact of this sentence?
A great insight to just even think about that.
Yeah, thank you. And I was actually how I started working with coaches was seeing how many of them just used all this jargon, like, well, here, shift your paradigms. Okay, maybe they kind of sort of know what that means. If they're a total layperson, they probably don't. But
Yeah.
let's see how we can change this to language that they understand. So I imagine that's probably something you help with too, right? Is helping people to translate their jargon from their highly educated backgrounds into terms their clients understand.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think I'm pretty good at is stepping into a novice's shoes or a beginner's shoes that wouldn't know a topic and go, oh, how would I hear that? And when you have it, when you share a story in front of a group of people, some people go, oh, I get exactly what you mean because they know the jargon. Other people go, I don't have any idea where they're going with that. And when you're unclear about where you're going, you start to lose your audience and they start to slip away into another world.
Yeah, I could definitely see how the speaker gym would be extremely helpful for that because you probably got a lot of people from different backgrounds, some of whom are educated in the current speaker's knowledge or area of expertise, and some of whom are totally oblivious to it. So having that variety of feedback, I could see that being super valuable.
Yeah, my friend Patricia, who I love in the Speaker Skills Plus group, she talks a lot about spiritual stuff and she talks about frequency. And sometimes I'm playful with her and said, frequency, you mean how many times you visit the store? Or frequency, the vibration, how frequent is the vibration? And instead of talking that, how you feel certain things. Do you ever feel just that vibrant energy where nothing is wrong in the world? And you're just so clear and laser focused because you are present, fully present. That's magic.
Yeah, so it sounds like I like to describe myself as the universal translator from Star Trek, and sounds like you do the same thing.
Nice. I am not a gifted universal translator, but I can feel I know when a word makes me feel something. And I ask sometimes the group, did everyone feel, what did you feel when they said that? So you know what you're getting feedback on it because in our head, we have all the background material and go, oh my gosh, this is going to sound great. And then you have these confused looks going, what did they just say?
And I think that ties into that whole self-worth thing too, because one thing I mentioned in a few of my other interviews, it can be so easy for our special knowledge to start to feel like common knowledge or to go so second nature, we forget how much expertise went into this knowledge, which can trip us up in a couple of ways. It can make us feel like we're not as much of an expert as we are, and of course, it can make us forget that other people don't know what we know, thus we confuse them.
Great points and so much. And sometimes we mirror each other. We just need someone to go, oh my gosh, that's valuable. Or even from the other side, oh my gosh, let me give you a little feedback to make that a little bit clearer. And when we deliver a story and people go, oh wow, that's a great story. And when you have everyone saying that, you pretty much know you've got a great story. And that gives you the confidence to go out further because you've delivered that great story in a playful environment where we've created a safety net for you to take risks.
And having that safe environment to practice, I could see that being absolutely invaluable, especially for people who don't have that much practice or who are really nervous about possibly being rejected or judged.
Absolutely, and there's practice in it. I say get on the speaking trapeze. Now, if you were on a trapeze and there was no net below you, how many risks are you going to take? Especially if you're like 40 feet in the air, you're not going to take a risk. But if you know we've created a net, you can take a risk, reach for that second bar, grab on or miss, fall in the net, climb back up and do it again and again and again.
Very much.
And doing it again and again, that's what makes you great.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned during our earlier conversation was beginner speakers have only one script, advanced speakers listen and adapt. So could you tell any more, like tell the audience more about how that works and how they can listen and adapt while still not, losing their train of thought?
Well, one of the ways, for beginning speakers, oftentimes you get tunnel vision because you can only focus on the words of your speech. And that's okay. I say, if you've written down, if your words are good, and one of the things I used to do when I was in that point in my speaking career, I'd often put it on a 3x5 card, have it in my pocket. So if I got lost, I could always, oh, just hold on a second. I could get back on track. And so anything you can give yourself that gives you a crutch. And I'll give you maybe like three fear crutches. One, I remember when I was giving talks to a new audience, there was a video that I started to play like 5 minutes into the talk. So I knew once I played the video, no one's watching me. I could relax for just a second, get a breather. The other is do an exercise with the group. And one of the exercises that I would do to even just calm myself is say, let's all breathe together. Let it out. And one more time. And let it out. So I was calming myself with the breath and calming the audience because, again, we reflect each other. And you might even have an exercise. Why don't you write down three things that are stopping you from getting what you want? So then the focus is, again, goes off you, goes back to them. You can breathe, take a drink of your water, whatever you need to do to more relax.
Yeah, I can see that being especially valuable for introverts and neurodivergent people who just need to decompress partway through the process.
Right. And if you have a series of techniques, if you ever get stuck that you can give your audience to give yourself that break, it's a wonderful thing to do. And then the other thing I'll share this is I made it about my audience. So no longer it's no longer I'm focused no instead of focusing on me, I'm focusing what can I give to this audience? And my constant focus is how can I give value? And if I've practiced it before and other people see the value, I know I'm bringing value. And if we do that, it's so much more powerful.
So one thing speakers sometimes run into is, their audience is sitting there kind of frowning, and maybe it's concentration or maybe it's disapproval. So how do you advise speakers respond to that situation where it isn't obvious that the audience is positively engaged?
That's a great question, and it can really throw a beginning speaker off. It can even throw an advanced speaker off. Go, wow, this lesson isn't landing. And I remember my improv teacher, Jackie Lowell, who I loved, helped me with so many things. She said she shared a story of what had happened, and I'll share two quick stories of how people have handled it. She was speaking to her improv group. I wasn't a part of this one. Was performing for this Mensa group, so very highly intelligent individuals, and no one was laughing. No one in the room. It was just dead silent. And she said, play it for yourselves. So one of the keys is when on stage and in learning it is have fun when you're on stage. Be playful. Do it for yourself if the audience isn't bringing the energy back to you. I mean, that's what I love about most audience. You get that two-way energy. But if they're not bringing the energy back, play it for yourself. And then afterwards, all these people came up and said, oh my gosh, your speech, your improv was so funny. But none of them laughed. But inside, they were laughing in their head. Oh my gosh, this stuff is so funny. So it's wonderful in that way. And the other was a group that I put together. We were doing improv and doing a workshop for these young women who were just in time for foster youth and their mentors. And there was only one lady in the top row. Everyone else was engaged, but she had kind of her arms crossed and she had that kind of frown on her face. And we go, it went great. Everyone but that one lady loved us. And we were kind of debriefing it in another room. And that one lady came up to us and said, oh my gosh, you guys were so good. So just because they look like they're not enjoying doesn't mean they are. They might be though. But use that as a learning, become strong enough in here you can handle hearing the feedback to get better. And just if it was bad, and I've done bad things before, use that feedback to get better.
Yeah, and like one thing you mentioned in our earlier conversation was ways to actually, talk to the audience, engage them, and get feedback in midstream. So, what are some good ways to get that feedback in midstream and adjust if necessary without really throwing off the track or of the talk or looking unconfident?
Yeah, I think actually if you do it with relaxed manner, you'll look very confident in actually getting feedback. And I use multiple tools to get feedback as much. I said, if I say something you don't like or you want to challenge me, please do. And how I'm able to do that very well, I'll give them insight in this. I used to hate to be wrong.
Mm.
If I said something that was wrong, I would beat myself up about it, go, oh, I'd have doubts and it'd kind of spiral down. And what I realized is I had a hidden program in here that if I was wrong on the outside, I was making myself wrong on the inside. Now, I don't need to do that anymore. I'm happy to be wrong because that means I can make you right. And it takes the pressure off, especially when I go in rooms where people really know a lot. And I work with a lot of very successful CEOs. And when they, I mean, they know so much. If I needed to know everything they know, I would be in deep trouble. But I add value to them and say, please challenge me. And I'm comfortable being challenged. And the answer might be, you know what, I think you're right. Or, let me attempt a different story and see if we can make the point this way. And sometimes it's just hitting it from multiple angles so people get a clear picture of what you're sharing. And what was that? Take me back to the question again, because I know there was another thing I wanted to touch on there.
Yeah, say the audience appeared to be bored, you weren't sure if they were bored or not, or you weren't sure that they were getting it, ways to ask for feedback on that without just seeming unconfident or throwing yourself off track.
Yeah, even polling your audience, how many of it, who is finding value in this? Just ask, and you might be surprised when they all put their hands up, but they were, some of them might be doing this. They're putting notes in their phone, but you thought they were texting. Oh yeah, so much value. What did you like the most? Start getting, feedback from someone in the audience, and you might be even losing part of the audience, but you go, someone you see is really excited. Focus on them and go, Dan, what are you getting from this? And Dan might come back, especially if there's a leader in the group that's getting a lot. You go, oh my gosh, I got these 5 things, Chris. It's going to make a difference in everything I do. And then the other group goes, wow, if Dan's getting all that, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I should be more focused too.
Yeah, and
And those
speaking of, oh, sorry, go ahead, you finish, and I'll
those
stop.
are just a few. I mean, there's so many little things you can do to make your speaking life easier.
Yeah, and speaking of making things easier, one thing as somebody who is someone is suspected to be neurodivergent and knows a few neurodivergent people, sometimes when people in the audience are neurodivergent, they actually kind of need to be doing their doodles or their solitaire game or whatever. They need to keep their hands busy, or else all that excess brain power that isn't being spent on your speech can tend them drag them way off to the side like a big dog on a leash. And actually, they're part of their brain has tugged their entire brain away from their speech and they've missed several sentences. So if somebody's doodling or fiddling with the game, they might just be keeping a part of their brain busy so the rest of their brain can concentrate on you.
Great, great point. And the better you know your in that leads to another technique that I'll share too. If you know your audience ahead of time, the better you can handle things like that. If you know someone, hey, you know what? You get to know them, hey, Chris, I doodle, that's why I do. Or I'm expecting a important call from my wife. She's about to give birth. I might have to leave soon. They just tell you. And if you know your audience, it's okay when they do whatever they need to do. And I think part of it, I share some of my own stories. And I mean, I'm not naturally extroverted. I'm more comfortable, re-energized by myself. And that's actually one of the reasons I like to speak, because when I speak, then it allows people to come up to me afterwards, because I'm not the kind of person that goes out and says hi to everyone.
Yeah, it
So
makes
there's
sense. Kind of give that introduction, get yourself established in their minds, and then deal with them instead of doing it cold.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, these are some really great tips you shared. I really appreciate you taking the time to share them. Are there any final tips that you especially want people to know? Anything that we didn't really cover that you want to make sure that you share?
Well, there's a lot, and I'll maybe cover this one. So my improv teacher one day, when no one was getting up to participate, said, what are you saying to yourself that's stopping you from getting up? And I was saying, I don't have anything funny or clever. I don't want to look bad, so I'm not going to get up and participate. And she said in that moment, she shared with us what she said was the secret to success in improv and in life. And I was leaning in, all excited to hear what she had to say. And when she said it, I said, no, thank you. Uh-uh. I don't want it to be that, because the critical voice in my head really resisted doing what she said. And now a lot of people I work with, we build this safety net so you can get on that speaking trapeze. But here's what she said. She said, Stephanie, the secret to success in improv and life is dare to suck. And when she said that, I said no. But other people in the room were almost giddy, floating out of their chair, excited to hear it. And I asked my friend Vanessa why she loved it so much. And she said, oh my gosh, Chris, it gave me permission to go for it. And even if I failed big, the whole audience would celebrate my attempt. and it would just feel I win either way. So we do some exercises where you really dare to suck, which is really daring to succeed. And we don't push people in to force them in. We create safety valves so some people can sit and watch the first few times. Other people can jump in right away and know we make the net visible and we get it so that you can feel the net and you're comfortable landing in it and you know you're supported by amazing people. So even if you don't choose to work with me, I would encourage you to build the safety net for yourself. Maybe find a partner to work with on your storytelling and speaking skills. Build a safety net for each other so you're comfortable pushing the boundary and taking risks.
That is great advice. Yeah, practice makes perfect. Like that story, I don't know if it's true or not, but about the teacher who, a pottery teacher, told some of his students you get to make one pot that you're graded on, but it has to be the best pot possible. And the others were graded on the quantity of pots. Well, guess who had the better pots? The students who made pot after pot after pot after pot.
And it makes sense to me. And I've heard that story too. And I actually retell that story in different places. So Stephanie and I have grabbed onto a story that fits our explanation for it. And I can see why you would get so much better. If you only make one pot and your grade's on one, and that's your sole focus, you're not building any reps. But if you build pot after pot after pot, you at the very end, you're going, wow, I learned so many different techniques, and now I learned what works for me. The possibility of creating a great clay pot is so much more likely.
Absolutely. So if people want to join your gym and get better at making their speaking clay pots, what are their next steps?
Well, reach out and connect. And if you want, Stephanie, I'll send you a link where they can click on that link and check out the Speaker Skills Plus. Guaranteed to grow your speaking and communicating success if you just jump in and play. And you'll grow at your own pace. You'll be supported really well. It's just like if you walk into a gym and you do the exercises, you're going to get in better shape. You are guaranteed to get in better shape if you jump in this. And here's a cool thing. It is fun. And when it's fun, you're less likely to procrastinate. You're more likely to get excited about going. And there are some people that have joined Speaker Skills Plus, not to grow their skills, but just because they were having fun.
That is a testament to how enjoyable you've made it. Yeah, for
Yes,
those of you who are listening, whether depending on where you're going to be watching this, whether on my blog, my YouTube channel, etc., the link will be with it, either in the blog text, the video description, the social media post. So yeah, it'll be right there for you to click on.
excellent.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us, Chris. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.